Hello, welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick. In this video, we're going to be comparing the Nike Alphafly 3 and the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0. The Alphafly 3 and the Cielo X1 2.0 are both carbon plate racing shoes. They're very expensive carbon plate racing shoes, really built to offer that high level, elite level performance for races, especially longer ones like the marathon, but really for races of any distance. They're both very expensive. Like I say, the Alphafly is £285 or $285. The Cielo X1 2.0 is £250 or $275. The Hoka is the slightly lighter shoe. It's 214 grams or 7.5 ounces in the UK 9, whereas the Alphafly is 220 grams or 7.7 ounces in the UK 9, although that is a US 10. With Hoka, it's a US 9.5, so I think the weight is pretty much a wash if you would look at US sizes. And then Cielo has a 7mm drop, and the Nike has an 8mm drop, and they both obviously have stack heights that head up towards that 40mm limit set by World Athletics. When it comes to the design of the two shoes, with the Hoka, you've got a very thin jacquard mesh. It's got a slightly plasticky feeling to it, I think almost to try and avoid the shoe absorbing too much water if you're in a very wet race. You've got a little bit of padding around the heel and a small internal heel counter, but in general, the upper is geared up to be very lightweight all around. Then you've got a dual density PEBA foam midsole with two layers of PEBA that surround a carbon plate that have some wings in the forefoot of the shoe to add a bit of stability there. A lot of cutouts going on with this shoe on the inside of it there, which obviously reduce stability, but also reduce the weight. Then you have a sticky rubber outsole with the usual coverage on the forefoot of two strips at the back. It's a pretty thick layer of rubber, I would say, so that might bode well in terms of durability. Then with the Alphafly 3, you've got an Atom Knit 3.0 upper with this booty style fit, whereas you have a more traditional tongue design on the Hoka Cielo X1. Again, a little bit of reinforcement around the heel, a bit more than you get on the Hoka, but overall the upper is designed to be nice and lightweight all round. You've got a Zoom X midsole with Air Zoom pods at the forefoot, so Nike's PEBA foam throughout most of the midsole with the firmer Air Zoom pods delivering a bit more response under the forefoot, and a full length carbon fly plate running through that, and then a far shot rubber outsole, and once again pretty full coverage of rubber at the forefoot of the shoe with two strips protecting the heel.
Okay, so the fit for me in these two shoes, the Alphafly 3, very comfortable shoe, plenty of space before the big toe for me and around the forefoot and the midfoot, but it's also quite easy to get a nice lockdown fit in it as well. So definitely stay to my size in this shoe. I used it for Boston Marathon. It was comfortable throughout. It doesn't feel like there's loads of padding in it, but it's quite cleverly placed in the shoe. And I didn't think I was going to like this tongue design, but absolutely fine. No issues at all. I would stay to my size in the Alphafly 3. The Hoka Cielo X1 2.0, this is a really restrictive shoe. I've hardly got any space before my big toe. You can really feel it touching the sides of my feet when I'm running in it, and I've got very average width feet. And yeah, it's a very limiting fitted shoe. I generally don't necessarily buy or need shoes that have the thumbs width before my big toe, so I'm finding these for the runs that I've done in it. But I think if you're really used to having that extra space and you're on the fence with like your foot size, you're probably going to want to go up half a size in this. All the runs I've done in it, I found it really comfortable, but I definitely think that if you've got slightly wider, slightly longer feet, you probably want to go up half a size in this.
So in terms of fit, I've had a good experience on both of these shoes. I've got them both in a UK size 8, and I would say they have fit true to size for me now. I would say the biggest differences are that the Alphafly 3 is definitely the naturally more spacious and more roomy of the two shoes. The Cielo X1 2.0 is very much in keeping with a lot of Hoka shoes where it's quite slim and narrow when it kind of sits very close to your foot, and that's kind of what I found. I've got skinny narrow feet, so it's worked for me. The from a kind of lockdown point of view, I think it's a little bit easier than the Cielo X1 2.0, kind of more traditional laces. The tongue is a little bit slimmer. That kind of all-in-one kind of knitted upper that you get in the Alphafly 3 and the kind of ribbed laces that you're getting maybe makes it slightly trickier, but I have found the lockdown in general to be very good. In terms of kind of padding around the heel collar and that kind of support around those areas, it's a little bit more traditional in that sense on the Cielo X1 2.0, whereas the Alphafly 3, it's more internal in terms of that padding, but I haven't found any issues in terms of those lockdowns. It's just delivered in very different ways. So I would say go true to size in both these shoes. Just be aware of the fact that the Cielo X1 2.0 sits a little bit more narrow, and the Alphafly 3 is definitely a little bit more accommodating and roomy.
When it comes to fit of the two shoes, I've got a UK 9 in both of these shoes, but as I mentioned at the start there, with Nike that's a US 10, it's a US 9.5 with Hoka, and it has a shorter fit as you might expect based on that. It's also a slightly more narrow shoe, I would say, than the Alphafly. It really dials in nicely for me, the Hoka does, because I'm someone with a narrow foot who's a little bit small for my size, so the fit worked perfectly for me, but I do think it will probably cause a few more issues than the Alphafly, which I think has quite a relaxed fit that will work well for lots of different runners. Nice supportive layer of padding around the back of it as well, but they are both pretty lightweight, racy uppers. They've held my foot securely over the course of long, hard runs. I have no concerns with either of them myself, but maybe the Hoka is that little bit narrower, and that might be a problem for some people. In general, though, I would stick to your normal running shoe size with both of these shoes.
So in terms of my running time in these two shoes, I have raced in both. I got up to 10k distance with the Cielo X1 2.0 and up to half marathon distance with the Alphafly 3. And the first thing I would say is that these are two shoes that do firmly belong in that super shoe category. If you are looking for two shoes that are enjoyable to run faster in and come alive when you are running harder, then these are two of the best that you can get, given they are very expensive shoes to get. I do think they deliver that faster feeling slightly differently. So while these two shoes actually roughly weigh in the same for me, I have felt that Cielo X1 2.0 runs a little bit more sprightly for me compared to the Alphafly 3, which, as I said, is roughly the same weight, but it does feel like there's a bit more shoe on when you are out racing in it. I think that lighter feel on the Cielo X1 2.0, I think, has made it a nicer shoe to run shorter distances, and I would find it much nicer to run shorter distance races with. I think the Cielo X1 2.0 has all the qualities you want in a faster shoe. It is bouncy, lively, aggressive. It really has a nice kind of rocket feel that gets you from heel to toe in a very quick fashion. You just can feel that, as soon as you put it on. What I think that does is, if you are running longer in it, I think you have to kind of maintain that good form and technique. And if you start to tire that shoe, it's going to feel like a lot more awkward of a shoe to run in, just because of that kind of less stable kind of feel that you're getting. I think in comparison to the Alphafly 3, that's definitely a more stable feeling shoe compared to the Cielo X1 2.0. That is also a bouncy, kind of lively shoe. But I think what I found, particularly in that half marathon race, where it wasn't an impeccable race, but I think when I felt good, I felt I could cruise in that shoe at a good pace. And it felt more controlled, and I felt that, going longer in that shoe, I would feel more confident doing in it in that shoe. If I had any issues, I'd kind of fallen off or started to tire a little bit in the Alphafly 3. I think from a kind of outsole point of view, durability point of view, I think the Alphafly 3 fills me a little bit more confidence that it's going to be a shoe that I can do a lot more mileage in. I think the outsole feels that there's more rubber there. It's going to grip a little bit better. I haven't had any issues with this Cielo X1 2.0 from a gripping point of view, but I think the Alphafly 3 naturally feels like there's a bit more going on with the outsole. I think durability point of view, I feel like I'm going to get more out of the Alphafly 3, just in terms of how it's built, how it feels to run longer in. Whereas I think with the Cielo X1 2.0, absolutely, it will be a marathon distance shoe, a half marathon distance shoe. But I do think that, based on my experience, that I would feel more confident running longer and putting more mileage in the Alphafly 3. So these are two shoes that I've really enjoyed. They are shoes that feel good to run fast in, both at shorter and longer distances. I think that for me, there's more versatility for faster paces on, with the Cielo X1 2.0. But I think with the Alphafly 3, I would feel more confident running harder and faster over longer distances and cruising at longer distances as well. That's been my kind of biggest takeaways from running in these two shoes.
On to the run test then. I've done a lot of running in both of these shoes. I've done about 135 kilometers in the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0, all of that quite recently in training for the Seville Marathon and most recently the London Marathon. And then the Nike Alphafly 3, I've done about 160k in. I've raced in both shoes. I've done 20 milers in both shoes. Really think they're both very good shoes, but they have quite different feels on the run, I would say. The Nike has a softer feel for me. I would say you have a smoother, almost subtler transition onto the forefoot with the Nike, and then you hit those air swing pods, and those are the dominant feeling on the run I get from this shoe. That's what I really noticed. There's lots of nice soft ZoomX foam that moves you forward, and then you hit that firmer air zoom pod area that really adds some punch and propulsion to your stride. It's a really nice shoe that ticks over really well. It is rockered, and it does move you through your foot strike quite swiftly, but I don't think it actually feels as aggressive and rockered as the Hoka, which has a slightly firmer feel. The really dominant feeling I have when I'm running in the Cielo X1 is of that midfoot rocker, really pushing forward from there, and that's how I notice it. It does move you more onto that midfoot than the Nike does, and then kind of punches from there with the sharp forefoot rocker and the plate and the foams all coming together to push you off your toes. It's quite a different feeling to the original Hoka Cielo X1 in that it's not a very stable shoe at all, the Hoka. It's a very aggressive one. I actually think the Nike has a more relaxed, stable feel all round. I think it's one that feels very geared towards marathon training and marathon running, the Alphafly 3, but then has a lot of pace if you do try and up the pace. Like, I've run my fastest 10k in the Alphafly 3, and I've done sharp track sessions looking at things like 5k paces on the track, and it always feels really good for it. The Hoka does feel nimbler and more aggressive, but actually I think the result of the way the Alphafly moves is a very fast turnover and a very fast and efficient style, whereas the Hoka maybe feels more obviously quick underfoot with that fast, aggressive rocker it has. I'd say the downside of that with the Hoka is that having done long runs in it, I don't think it's quite as comfortable as the previous version or the Alphafly. Like, I'm looking at it as a potential shoe for the London Marathon, and I don't really have any concerns about performance, but my concern is probably a little bit more is this going to feel a bit harsh towards the end of the run because of the way the rocker really gets into your gait and you have to work with the shoe to really get that punch off it? How's that going to feel towards the end of a really hard long run when you're tiring? Alphafly you've got kind of no concerns about because it is such a comfortable shoe. It just works really well throughout the length of runs. Whereas the Hoka, in contrast very much to the first version of the shoe, now is a shoe I worry about more on the side of things like comfort and stability as opposed to speed and performance, which has definitely got in spades. I did do a short run wearing both shoes at the same time, and these factors all really come across. You feel that midfoot rocker on the Hoka so clearly and punchily, you hit that area and you really are pushed forward fast, and it turns over really quickly, and you've got a very fluid, fast running feeling that feels great. Like I say, when you're fresh and pushing hard, it's just how I felt towards the end of my longest run in the shoe, which was probably about 34k, where I still felt good. I still felt able to run quickly. I was doing, I think, 8 times 3k reps in the shoe and hitting marathon pace in all those reps, and I felt pretty good at the end of it. But it was tough. It's a shoe that I think is a bit more demanding maybe on the body than the Alphafly, which is definitely giving you a fast ride, an efficient ride, has almost more of a subtle transition onto the forefoot. And then when you hit those airs in pods, it's no longer subtle. It's the loudest shoe. It's louder than the Hoka, and you do get that really punchy forefoot toe off.
So these two shoes, the Alphafly, I was really excited about getting the Alphafly 3. I love the Alphafly 1. The Alphafly 1's probably my top 3 favourite race shoes of all time. So I was very excited about getting the Alphafly 3. I never had an opportunity to try the 2. I'm still trying to get hold of a pair of those. So I was really looking forward to trying this, and I got it before Boston Marathon, and I was going to use it as my Boston Marathon shoe, which I did do in the end. But I've never really, I like this shoe. I think it's absolutely fine. I think it's a solid, fast, carbon plate race shoe. I think it does everything you'd expect from it. The thing that I don't get from it, which I got from the Alphafly 1, is it just felt really bouncy and comfortable to wear. It just felt like it was giving me loads of energy return, and just made those marathons and the other races that I've done in them just feel really, really great. I still save them as my shoe that I might do Manchester in them actually, just because they just work perfectly for me, the original Alphafly. This feels a little bit more like the Vaporfly 2 or something like that to me. It doesn't feel as propulsive. It doesn't feel as noticeably bouncy. Definitely is. You get quite a bit of energy return in it. It's definitely an efficient shoe, but it's not as noticeable. It doesn't feel like you're getting a bounce of every step. And as a result, I don't enjoy it as much as a lot of other shoes like the Saucony Dolphin Pro 3, Alphafly 1. I'm trying to think of other options now. About Vaporfly 2, I would probably say I prefer that shoe to this. So it's a solid racing shoe. For me, I just want a little bit more bounce and energy return from it. And I like feeling that my race shoes, especially marathon shoes, are giving me something more, especially in the later stages of a race. And I don't really get that from the Alphafly 3. But I think it's a fantastic shoe, and I can see why people really like it. It just doesn't work particularly well for me, especially at that price. I want a bit more from a shoe and a bit more of an aggressive bounce from it. The Hoka Cielo X1 V2.0. This shoe, I really like this shoe. So I'm a massive fan of the previous version of the shoe. Just found it to just work really well for my running style. Love the bounce, love the wide base on it. Just love the aggressive feel of it. It sort of turns you over, and you really notice it turning you over. You get a similar vibe from the new version. It does feel a bit lighter and nimbler on the feet. It does feel like there's less shoe there, so you don't have as big a base as you have on the original version. But you still get that noticeable tipping action. It feels like it's popping you off with every step, like rolling you forward, and then you just get a really quick pop off. I haven't raced a marathon in this shoe yet. I've done about 35k in it, and that's included 2 park runs that were really successful. I'm not very fit at the moment, but I used this and I got very close to my PB at park run, which I think in this shoe was about 18:26. I got with my PB on that course is 18:15 when I was a lot fitter. So this really, really felt nice. I think it's more of a shorter distance shoe. I'm not sure whether I'd go for this in the Manchester Marathon next week, just because it doesn't feel like there's enough in it. I think I'd noticed that the lack of midsole towards the later stages of that. So I might opt for something else for Manchester Marathon because I'm a bit risky with this. But I think for half marathon, I'll definitely go for it. So between these two shoes, it's a tricky one because they're both really, really good shoes. And the only difference is that the Hoka just works better for my running style, I think. But I do think that it really comes down to that feel of the shoe, and I just have a feeling that the Cielo is going to be slightly better at those shorter distances. I think I'd probably opt for that for like half marathon and below. Alphafly 3 just doesn't work perfectly for me, but I think it's great for any distance, and for some people it would be absolutely perfect. I know Nick's a big fan of it. The other thing I'd say about these shoes is the outsole. So if you watch the channel, you'll be aware that I destroy the bottoms of most carbon plate race shoes. Normally in this outer section here on both of the shoes, I'll tear off the rubber, and I've done that with most of the carbon plate race shoes that I've tested over the past year or so. Alphafly 3, it's fine. I've not had it's not come off at all. I've been rubbing down on this quite a bit, but the rubber is absolutely fine. So I was pretty surprised to see how durable this was when testing on my really weird running style. So I've not had any issues at all with that, and I think the outsole is really, really good on the Alphafly 3. Very good grip, very good layer of rubber, absolutely spot on. The Cielo X1 2.0. So within 1 kilometre, I ripped the rubber off of the back of this, which is a record for me. I've never done it that quickly. Normally it's over 10k. So I did it on both shoes within one kilometre. I'd ripped this rubber off, and it came halfway off. So I've just stuck loads of shoe glue on it now. Seems to fixed it a bit, but yeah, there's these back sections really. I mean, I'm not a normal runner when it comes to these back outer sections of a shoe, but I've never done it in that quickly before, so it just sort of tore them off straight away. Aside from that, I do think it's a good layer of rubber, and especially for a lightweight race shoe, I think that's a really solid bit of rubber on there. So good outsoles on both, apart from this back section, which for me, it just doesn't work. I just completely destroyed it far earlier than I normally would on a shoe. My verdict on these two shoes, pretty tricky one because for my style of running, I don't think it's like for like. I think the Alphafly 3 is a fantastic all-round shoe that you can use from 5k all the way up to marathon distance. I think it's really comfortable to wear. I can definitely see why it's a really popular shoe and why people really like it. For me, it just lacks a little bit of the energy return and the turnover that I got from the original Alphafly. Much prefer that shoe for any distance. But the Alphafly, I can see why it works so well, but it just doesn't work particularly well for me, my running style. The Cielo X1 2.0, I love this. I love the feel of it. I love the turnover. I love the bounce you get. I love the way it lands and pushes you back off. But I do think it's limited to maybe half marathon distance for me. I don't think I want to go for marathon just because it feels a little bit light on the feet, and I'd want a bit more padding and midsole in that shoe. So if I was to choose between these two shoes, it's a tricky one because if I was going up to half marathon, see that Hoka Cielo X1 2.0 all the way. But if I was running a marathon, I'd go for the Alphafly 3. So it's a hard one to choose between the two. I think if I had to have one of these shoes, I'd go for the Hoka. But there's limitations for me between each shoe, and I think they are both really, really good shoes, and I'm reviewing this based on my running style and what I want to get from the shoe. So I'm going to go for the Hoka in this instance.
Verdict, and this is a pretty tricky one for me, I'd say. I think the Alphafly would probably suit more people, but I'm not 100% sure on which one I'd prefer myself. Like, yeah, I've got a really fun, rockered, fast, propulsive ride with the Cielo X1 2.0. I really find it exciting to pull on and run fast, and I think it really delivers across a range of speeds, a range of race speeds, and I think it will be a very good marathon racer, but at the same time, slightly more concerns for me about the marathon in this shoe in terms of its comfort and stability, whereas the Alphafly is such a good cruiser. You really can lock into a pace, and it can be a really fast pace. Like I say, it can be a 5k, 10k pace, and it just helps you hold it really well. It's weird to think that it's the less dramatic shoe of any kind of shoe, because the Alphafly is such an outlandish looking shoe, and the airs in pods are so loud, but it does deliver that really effortlessly fast ride without necessarily feeling quite as punchy and propulsive as the Hoka, and I think it will offer a bit more support over those long distances for sure. So maybe if you're looking at the marathon in particular, I think the Alphafly is a safer bet. It's a little bit more money, but you are getting an incredibly high level of performance there. I think if you prefer the slightly more rockered and aggressive feeling in a racing shoe, especially if you're looking at shorter distances. I think you get that from the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0, and I think it's certainly going to be a great marathon shoe as well. If you like that feeling, I think it might just be a little bit more demanding on the body than something like the Alphaflys. You've got to really work hard to maintain your form throughout the whole race to get the best from it, whereas the Alphafly, I think, does just work quite well, even when you're very tired. So yeah, two great shoes. I think the Alphafly will probably suit lots of people well. If you're looking at the marathon, it's probably the one I'd go for. But the Hoka Ride is certainly excellent. I do think it's a very competitive option across any distance.
So my take on whether you should go for the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0 or the Nike Alphafly 3. Now, this is the way I look at it. If you are looking for a fast carbon racing shoe that I think works very well across shorter up to kind of longer distance runs, I think the Cielo X1 2.0 will work for you. I will caveat that by saying that I think the kind of very kind of unstable nature of that shoe isn't going to make it the perfect shoe for every runner. And I think with the Nike Alphafly 3, particularly if you're looking for a carbon racing shoe that is better suited or more accommodating and more controlled and stable feeling compared to the Cielo X1 2.0, particularly over longer distances, half marathon, marathon distances, that would be the shoe that I would side with going. And I think if I had to pick of these two shoes, knowing what I know now and my experiences, I think I would probably side with the Nike Alphafly 3, particularly what I've seen over longer runs, and knowing that these are still going to be shoes that I can run harder and faster across distances, and I know I'm going to get good experience across those distances. I just think when I'm looking for a shoe that particularly I want to run longer in and long run kind of cruise at my half marathon distance, I think the Nike Alphafly 3 is going to be a shoe that I would probably reach for over the Cielo X1 2.0. Doesn't make the Cielo X1 2.0 a bad shoe. I just think it's going to be a shoe that I feel more confident to run a mixture of paces or race a mixture of paces with the Alphafly 3. So yeah, that's my take on whether you should go for the Nike Alphafly 3 or the Cielo X1 2.0.
That's a comparison of the Alphafly 3 and the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.